Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Spark and Inspire Self-Care in Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. Thank you for joining us. This is Kimberly. Some background noise. Just remember to keep yourself muted if you can. If you have your volume on and your speakers on, please. Great, thank you, thank you. Anyway, sorry. So I am Kimberly, and I'm a family engagement specialist at Child Care Resources with the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn program. And with me is Nicole.
Hi, I'm also a family engagement specialist.
And today we're really excited for this topic. It's going to be a pretty open and relaxed discussion, and we really encourage you to participate as much as you can. Feel free to speak up and ask questions or send us a message in the chat box. Just a few housekeeping things. When you do send a message to us, you can send us a message privately just to Nicole and I, and we're on our colleague Lisa's account on Zoom. So it'll just say send a message to Lisa. You can click that on the drop down. Or if you want to send a public message to everyone, you can also select everyone when you send a message as well. We just want to let you know that there's a privacy setting too if you want to make your message public or not. And then also as well, you all are muted right now. And if you wish to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself on your device. And yeah, that should be good. When we're done with this webinar, we'll send out the PowerPoint slides and a recording of the YouTube video so that you can access that later on if you'd like. And just to do an audio check, can everyone hear me okay? Just let me know.
Yes.
Oh, good. And then right now you should be looking at a title slide, like a PowerPoint slide. I just want to make sure that audio and visual is good before we continue. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. So we are going to move forward. This is our outline for today. We're going to talk about some of the goals of this webinar and then also why we are all here today. And then we'll dive into what self-care is, why we do it, when we do it, and then how we do it. And just as a disclaimer, Nicole and I wanted to say that we are not licensed health professionals at all. We are staff at Child Care Resources that help support Kaleidoscope facilitators and affiliates, and we're facilitating the discussion today. So as we're talking and we talk about topics like health and stress, just know that we're talking about our own lived experiences and sharing resources with you that are all available online to anyone. And if you do have any concerns about your health or self-care at all, you can definitely contact your healthcare provider for deeper questions that you may have. We just wanted to put that out there before we started.
So today we're here to talk about self-care, why we need self-care, what is self-care, and how we all practice self-care. We also just want to offer a supportive space where we can all discuss as a community about how we care for ourselves. And lastly, we want to be able to share some resources with all of you for your continued learning.
Okay, so the first question that we like to pose to all of you is, why are all of you here today? This is a Wednesday afternoon, and you all chose to be on this webinar about self-care. And we just like to know why and what your goals are and why you're here. And feel free to send us a message in the chat box or to speak and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay? This is Desiree.
Yeah, we can. Hi, Desiree.
Hi. I'm here particularly because I have a lot going on in my life, and a lot of times it's hard to get that self-care and to keep going. You know, a lot of people around me that I know lately have been having strokes and just a lot of medical things going on with them. And so it's just really important for me to be here for my family and my friends and be able to continue my business and learn some little tidbits to do for self-care. I think we all should practice self-care every once in a while. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Is there anyone else that would like to share? Well, I know that one of the reasons why Nicole and I decided to do this webinar, in addition to knowing that this is a really important topic to talk about, is that a while back we did a poll on a survey and we sent it out to facilitators. And this was actually a topic that was the most requested. And so since then, we've had it on our to-do list to do a webinar on this subject. And then also, Nicole and I, our role is to support facilitators in your work as you do Kaleidoscope groups. And so we just wanted to, again, offer like a space for you all to talk about this subject so that we can make sure that we are the best that we can be, essentially. And this is a slide that we made to kind of express and demonstrate all of the things that KP&L facilitators do and have on their mind. As a Kaleidoscope facilitator, this may be your primary role. It may be a second job for you. It may be part of your full-time job. Whatever that is, we all know either way that all of you are balancing many different things in your professional and personal life. And the examples on this slide are actually things that we've drawn from talking to facilitators about all the things that you all juggle. So in addition to leading your group every week and doing the KP&L planning and outreach and prep and working on the attendance, we also know that you have other job duties, other deadlines you're meeting, other jobs you may have. You're thinking about daily things like making dinner tonight or taking care of an ill relative, appointments you have, taking your kids to lessons, sports activities, and you even may be in school. We know a lot of facilitators that do this are also going back to school in addition to a lot of the other obligations that they have. So we just want to recognize that we do know that you all have a lot on your plate. We recognize that, and we want to thank you for all the work that you do. And in the meantime, we want to help support you in developing a really quality self-care plan so that you feel healthy and good about your life and your work. And we just got actually a message from someone else about why they decided to be here today. And it looks like they said that they're here because they're a believer in self-care and that they know they need to take more time for themselves and would like to hear how others practice it. So that's perfect. That's a perfect reason to be here because that is what we will be talking about today. All right. Nicole's going to talk about.
I think we can all relate to what Kim just talked about, the many things that are on our plates. And I feel like some of you may have a lot more on your plates. So it's important to find the time to implement quality self-care so that you don't burn out and you feel happy and healthy. In the field that we work in, I think it can be really easy to experience burnout. We are giving a lot of our energy to caregivers and families, and sometimes we forget about ourselves and we forget to take care of ourselves. And also, I want to mention if you are a manager to think about just providing an environment and a culture around self-care, checking in with facilitators to make sure that they are practicing self-care and checking in to see if they need anything. And remembering that you also need to practice self-care. So self-care is for everyone. Kim found this cute little picture and I really like it because it says, always fill your own cup first and allow the world to benefit from the overflow. Before we can help and care for others as children and families in our programs, we must first care for ourselves. So I think that's really important. Self-care is not selfish.
It's not.
It is not selfish. I think we hear that sometimes, but it's not. It's caring about yourself, and we have to care for ourselves to care for others. So it's definitely not selfish. So now I want to take the time to ask all of you how you think of self-care. How would you define self-care? And again, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can chat in our chat box. We'll give you guys a few minutes. Okay. Kim, how would you describe self-care? How would you define it?
For me, it would just be doing whatever I need to take care of myself and to make sure I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I would define it. I know it looks like someone else, Wisteria, sent us.
Oh, yeah. It says, most of the KP&L facilitators I know of identify as women, and I think culturally women are taught to care about everybody before themselves.
That's very,
yes.
That's really good insight.
Yeah, thank you, Wisteria.
And so that's the important when thinking about self-care, because it's about caring about yourself as opposed to the others that culturally we're expected or thought of to care for. Yeah.
It looks like she also wrote, I think it's really important for those who identify as women to know that this happens and to take extra care of themselves. Yes, that is very true. Thank you, Wisteria. I agree too. Let's see.
This is Desiree. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm doing this on my phone because I'm doing a little self-care as I'm on here. So I'm trying to figure out how to use this phone and also keep my background quiet and speak at certain times. So be patient with me. But I like to do like little mini vacations to like ocean shores. Sometimes I'll just go and rent a hotel for a weekend. Also, I really like getting massages for self-care. I feel guilty about it, though, a lot. So I try to get myself out of the habit of feeling guilty for taking me time.
Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to really mention that, people do feel that way. And it's not, we don't want you to feel guilty. It's taking care of yourself, and you should feel proud of that, that you're taking care of your body and your mind. So it is very important. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
And it looks like somebody else chimed in and said self-care is taking time away from everyday stressors and take care of all of your well-being. Yep, absolutely. And then there's another comment that says, I think self-care is what you do to recharge. Doesn't have to cost anything also. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So when we looked up the definition of self-care, this is what we came up with. And it says, taking care of yourself, the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's health. Self-care is the intentional care of one's mental, physical, and emotional health throughout everyday practices and activities. But I also want to touch base on what self-care isn't, and that is self-care is not something that is forced. For example, doing something that you don't enjoy. So if you really, really don't like running, or you're not a fan of watching TV, you want to do something that brings joy to you, that sort of fills your cup. So self-care is not something that doesn't bring you joy. I also wanted to talk a little bit about mental health. And I'd like to read a few definitions. And it says, mental health involves cognitive thinking and harnessing one's attention to stay focused, which includes processing information, storing it in memory, and understanding the information. Mental health also includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Mental health is also exercising reason and processing any learned information. I think it's important to talk about these definitions because for me also, I didn't know exactly the difference between mental health and emotional health. So I'm also gonna define emotional health. And emotional health is a state of positive psychological functioning and involves expressing emotions. Emotional health includes our thoughts, feelings, and behavior internally and externally. Requires managing emotional actions, engaging the appropriate reactions to situations, and preventing unnecessary and unhealthy stress, which, if it's severe enough, can really lead to depression. Physical health is also really important for your overall well-being. If you're not caring for yourself mentally and emotionally, it definitely shows up in your physical health. Physical health involves proper nutrition, maintaining physical fitness, and practicing good sleeping habits. And these images are just different types of self-care. So the first one is really being physical. The second one is emotional. And the third one is social. And the last one is spiritual. Again, there are many types of self-care. These are just a few of them.
This is another diagram that we've also found. So basically, if you research self-care online, you'll get this plethora of diagrams and images and whatnot of the different types of self-care that have emerged and have been defined. And this is something that we chose to show to you. It shows the 8 dimensions of self-care. There are a lot of them. I didn't know there were this many, actually, before we researched and designed this webinar. So we have emotive, which relates to how we express ourselves; systemic, which relates to how we eat, move, and rest; environmental, that connects to how we harmonize with nature; relational, how we connect with others; aptitudinal, which goes into how we contribute to the world; cognitive, which has to do with how we take care of our minds and how we understand ourselves better; financial, that has to do with how we allocate and manage our resources and money in productive and effective ways; and luminescent. And I think the last one, luminescent, can be interpreted in different ways, but I think that relates to staying connected to like your true self and your inner truth, what you value and believe in. So an example of that would be like working for an employer whose values and mission aligns with yours. So I think diagrams like this can be really effective in using it as a tool to reflect about your self-care routine. So for example, it can give you a different lens. So let's say a person may care a lot about the outdoors and the environment, and so they have a really deep connection with nature and going outside and camping and hiking, and going on walks and so on. But maybe they're less connected to their systemic dimension of self-care and don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how they eat and how they rest. Another example, maybe someone might be focusing a lot on the financial dimension of self-care and are really great about budgeting and allocating resources in thoughtful and productive ways and making sure that they have time to go on really nice vacations and do self-care and get away from work. But maybe that person could increase their relational self-care and be better about connecting with their friends and family throughout the week. So those are just some examples of how you could apply a diagram like this. And I really encourage all of you to think about the different types of self-care Nicole has talked about and the ones on the slide right now, and think about which ones you're really strong in and that you know you do consistently and often. And think of some that you didn't know existed before, or one that you know that you could improve in, and think about how you may want to increase it and amp it up. Another thing we wanted to discuss, since we've already talked about what self-care is and the different types of self-care, is why do we need self-care? And I think we've already kind of talked about this a little bit already that you shared with all of us. And so these are just a few things that we came up with for reasons why people need self-care. And in this section, I just wanted to highlight a little bit about burnout and stress, because I think those are the things that kind of come up when we talk about this topic. When we ask, why do we need self-care? It's like, oh, we need to be happy and healthy, but also to prevent stress and burnout and manage it. And I just wanted to let you know that stress and burnout are two very different things. And I wanted to make sure that people knew that distinction. So stress, there are different types of stress. There's positive stress and then there's negative stress. Positive stress can be, feelings, maybe like anxious feelings that somebody may feel with like an upcoming wedding or a holiday or maybe even like a pregnancy. Negative stress is different. Negative stress is when your productivity goes down, when there may be health problems involved, and you're really exhausted. In comparison, burnout has to do with chronic stress with a job, and it's characterized by three different things: exhaustion, mental detachment from your job, and poor work performance. So for me, I know I personally thought burnout and stress, they're related, but I didn't really understand the clear distinction until doing this webinar with Nicole. But I wanted to let you know that those exist, they're different, and that implementing a really quality self-care routine can not only prevent burnout and stress, but also manage it if you have it. And if we do have a good quality self-care plan, just like the other things in the slide, we'll have a well-balanced life, be more productive, and we'll know that we're giving ourselves time to recharge. So when do we need self-care? I think this is something that we were thinking about a little bit more deeply when we were trying to figure out what we wanted to focus on this webinar. And I know Nicole and I had things to share with this, but before we do that, we wanted to ask all of you, when do you feel like you need self-care? What are the signs that you need to increase your self-care? And we'll check the chat box too if you feel like sending a message instead of talking.
Hi, I'm Myra.
Hi, go ahead, Myra.
For me, I think some of the signs that I see that I need to probably practice self-care is when I notice that my sleeping pattern is off, that I'm staying up later than I should be, or I'm not getting enough sleep, and also if I'm forgetting little tasks. I feel like I need to maybe calm down or not think so fast. I don't know, but yeah, just a couple things.
Thank you. I don't know if everyone could hear that, but she shared with us that when her sleeping pattern is off, she knows that she needs more self-care, and when she's not getting enough sleep. And then other people have chimed in to say when they have a fuzzy brain, they feel like they need self-care, and also flashbacks. Yeah, memories. Yeah. Also, I think she also added that when she's forgetful, which I know happens with me. When I go through huge transitions, I forget a lot of things. I think one morning I brushed my teeth twice because I forgot that I brushed it the first time. So that's how I know I need self-care when I can't keep track of things. Someone has also added feeling of dread about simple tasks. Yeah, that's a great idea. Like things that you do normally that are small, but all of a sudden you feel like, oh gosh, like I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. That's a sign as well.
Yeah, I can relate to Sophia, the fuzzy brain. Just sometimes when I'm doing work, I'm next to Kim and I'll tell her, my brain feels like mush. I think I need to eat, or I think I need to walk around the office for a bit just to sort of recharge.
That's definitely true. Something for me, other things that that I have that I know are signs of needing more self-care is when I'm not acting like myself. I feel like when people notice, like, oh, like, are you okay? Or like, something is off. That's when I know that, something is obviously bothering me or affecting me, and I need to do something that day or in that moment to make myself feel better. I also want to add that self-care is an intentional thing that should be done on a regular basis, and it should be a proactive activity. So instead of waiting for a stressful event to happen or whatever it is to implement self-care, we should be doing it all the time, regularly. so that when something does happen, like we have a lot of stuff going on, or a sad event happens, we've already been implementing all those regular activities that will help absorb the stressful things that are happening. So it shouldn't be something that you wait to do on a bad day. It should be something that you're doing all the time. Mm-hmm. So I encourage you to think about how to be proactive about your self-care, and we'll dig in more later about things that you all can do to create your self-care plan. So another question that we have for you. I know some of you have shared already, but this is a great time to really access your brain and think about what self-care activities work really, really well for you, and what you have tried that don't work well, to share with one another ideas and tips that you have in your mind about things you do maybe like throughout the day at work, or that you do occasionally, what your routine is, and so on. Does anyone want to share that at all? I can start. I know I work longer days now, and usually when I get home, if I am going home after work, I just kind of give myself some time just to like lay down and decompress before I transition to the next thing, especially if I work, like a 10-hour day and then I just drove in traffic for however long I did, just to have some quiet time without anyone talking to me or having any noise around. I appreciate the silence for a little bit before I move on to the next thing, whether that's like seeing a friend or making dinner. I just need to relax my body for a moment. And that's what I do pretty often. I wouldn't say every day, but often enough. Oh, someone has added, they started making a strict bedtime so that they wake up early and have a bit of time to themselves first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
Yeah. Especially in the afternoon, I feel like or later in the day, things can get busy with like if you have kids and families, but in the morning, making that your own time before the day has started is awesome. Someone has said exercises or a walk around the mall, spending time with friends, working out, and a good skincare routine. I totally believe in the good skincare routine. That's very, very true. These are awesome ideas. So it looks like a lot of people already are doing things related to self-care for themselves, which is really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Someone says, I make sure to take time to be present during meals instead of watching or working on something while I eat. I focus on my meal. And then someone says, good food. I totally agree with that. I know I have many friends and family that like to watch TV or watch something while they eat. I don't do that, but I also listen to music sometimes and just think about the food that I'm eating and how good it tastes and having conversations with people around me.
Yeah. I think that's good practice. I do sometimes watch TV when I eat.
That's okay.
But I do realize that those times that my partner and I are not watching TV and we're just eating together, that is a good way to practice self-care as well for me. Yeah.
Eating mindfully.
Yeah, eating mindfully.
Thank you for your contributions, everyone. This is a very engaged group of people. So it's awesome. All right. So self-care, it really depends on the individual and also other factors like generational and cultural factors of how people like self-care and what works best for them. There's so many things that influence it. Self-care is really something that transcends all peoples. There are parts of the world where self-care is very similar to what we find in the US, and there are parts of the world where self-care can look very different than what we're used to in this country. Some cultures really enjoy bathhouses as a form of self-care. Other cultures have a social norm of afternoon naps to get in more sleep during the day as a form of self-care, or long social dinners. I know in the US there's an emphasis on diet plans and life coaching and self-help books and so on. What's important to realize is what works well for you and to figure out what you like to do, and what works best for you may not work for someone else, and that's totally okay. You can define what your own self-care is and don't let anyone change that. Also, someone had mentioned earlier that It doesn't have to be costly, which is totally true. I like to think about the Kaleidoscope play learn philosophy of how children learn through play and everyday activities, and caregivers don't need an advanced education or need to purchase child development. That's very true with self-care as well. You don't need an advanced degree or a lot of money to implement self-care at all. You already have what it takes, and you can use very simple things that don't cost anything to implement it. So for example, some of this has already been mentioned, but here's a list right now on this side of things that you can do for self-care, and that's cooking, enjoying the sun, writing or drawing, cuddling with your animals and pets, talking to people, family, friends, giving a hug, reading, cleaning, gardening, and so on. Lots of good ideas. Here's another list of more things that you could do for self-care. Things that were on the last slide that are on this slide include focusing on your breathing. Nicole will talk about breathing a little bit later in the webinar and will lead us through an exercise. You can also make yourself a favorite cup of tea or a coffee, make a list of things you're grateful for, stretch, watch something or listen to something that makes you laugh. I think laughter is a great form of self-care. We always need that. I really encourage all of you to think about your self-care routine and to actually write it down. Make a list of things that you currently do already in your self-care routine, and then make a list of things that you want to do and put it someplace that you can see every day, like at your desk or on the mirror in your bathroom at home, whatever it is, so that you can remember it. So that every day you can think, okay, what is one thing from this list that I'm going to do today to focus on my self-care? Also, another self-care method that we want to talk about is therapy. Therapy is a very common thing that a lot of people participate in, whether that be individual therapy with a therapist or with their family or their partner. It's a great way to make time to make sure that you're reflecting and processing all the things that you have going on in your life, while having someone who is responsive to have a good conversation with you. This is another slide that kind of expresses all the things that come with self-care. I wanted to show this because one of the items on this picture is unplug, and I think that's really important in today's modern day of technology. We live in a time where we are expected to be on email a lot, social media, expected to text back and call back promptly. People these days in society are constantly on their phones and tablets and computers and watching TV. And it's a lot different than times in the past. And it's healthy to unplug sometime and to let go of all of that, whether that be for a whole weekend on a camping trip or even just the last hour before you go to bed to have no access to technology, or even in the middle of your workday to get up from your computer screen and take a walk around the block, even if it's just 2 minutes, let your body and mind recharge. I really encourage you to think about how often you're interfacing with technology and whether or not you feel like that reflects your energy and your health, and to think about how you want to take breaks from that. This slide right here I like because it shows how important sleep is, and I know someone had already brought that up, so this is a perfect segue. Sleep is important, just like eating good food and exercises for our health. And if we get adequate amounts of sleep, we can live better and perform our work better and help the communities that we serve better. On average, an adult gets about 8 hours of sleep to have a good night of sleep, but everyone's different. Some people can totally function well on less sleep than that, and some people need more than that. But I think the point we're trying to bring up is we encourage you to think about how much sleep you currently get right now and whether you think that's enough or not, and what you can do to adjust that if you feel like you do need a little bit more sleep. When we sleep, it helps us restore physically, and it helps our brain organize everything in it. It helps store information, and it helps our brain organize our memories. And that all happens during sleep. So if we don't give our brain enough time to do that, it does deeply affect us. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the things we've highlighted, sleep, technology, other self-care approaches we've discussed before we move on? No? Okay. Well, oh, what happened? Oh. Okay, here we go. So we actually have a video that we wanted to show you. It kind of builds upon what we already talked about and then adds some new ideas about how to implement a self-care routine. And we're going to play it. Hopefully you can hear it and it plays well. If not, this video is also linked at the end of this PowerPoint, so you can watch it later when we send the PowerPoint slides out. And we will put the captions on, so even if the volume may not be very good, hopefully it is, you can follow along with the captions. All right, let's try it.
Hey there, let's talk about self-care. Now, Parks and Rec, of course, is pretty great, but self-care is more than just treating yourself. Self-care is not a reward, though sometimes that can be part of it. It's a vital piece of the ongoing process of being a human. To quote the self-help classic Codependent No More, self-care is an attitude that says, I am responsible for myself. In other words, I am my responsibility, and I will honor that responsibility as I would anything else that was precious to me. So let's make an action plan for using self-care to make our lives more awesome. Step 1. Recognize that it is indeed okay to take care of yourself. Nay, it is not just okay, it is smart. As Lifehacker puts it, self-care helps prevent burnout, reduces the negative psychological and physical effects of stress, and helps you refocus on what's true and important. Like, there's an entire peer-reviewed international journal on burnout. This is like a real big difficult problem to solve. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, but it actually makes you more productive, not less, to set time aside for yourself. And regardless of your productivity levels, recognize that you are a human being, and that is enough to warrant compassion and kindness. For real. Step 2. Ideally, before the need strikes, research outwardly and inwardly what self-care means and what works for you. There are self-care actions that can help pretty much everyone: getting proper nutrition, some exercise, enough sleep, hydrating, and taking small breaks throughout the workday. I like to go for walks, and I like to be forced to do it by my friends or family or baby. We'll link to a list of almost 50 self-care actions down in the doobly-doo. But everyone is unique, so it's important to ask what actions make me feel better. Journaling, texting something nice to a friend, like watching videos of pug puppies, doing a bunch of push-ups, pillow fights, putting some projects on the back burner maybe. I personally am all in for the baby cuddles. I have a baby now, and I feel like I'm doing a thing that I was designed for, and that I need to be doing, and that I also just really like. Sometimes he's angry though, and he yells at me, but most of the time I get cuddles. Now, one possible self-care action from us to you: start a digital warm and fuzzy file and fill it with compliments or kind words you've received, good memories, and favorite photos. Like, I have to admit, I get lots of people saying nice things about me on the internet, and that helps get me through the day. Being able to look through this file when you're feeling down might go a long way to bringing you back up. You want this list to be both ample and flexible, and you may even want to break it into different categories. For instance, T. Michael Martin, the fellow who wrote this script, by the way, has a spreadsheet of self-care actions organized by types of negative experiences. After all, the self-care you need while you're depressed may not be the same self-care that helps when you're overwhelmed with work. Also, if other people are involved in these self-care actions, it's totally cool to let them know now that they are part of your action plan. They may not always be available, but odds are if they're a good friend, they're gonna do their best to do their part. Step 3. Self-care powers activate. It's best if you can recognize the warning signs that you could use some self-care before things go into the red zone. For me, by the way, it's when I notice my fingers going to websites that I didn't intend on going to. Like, just typing in reddit.com when I have a ton of work to do is a sign that I should go for maybe a little walk to recharge the batteries. If you're keeping a journal, you might notice a pattern or two in your behavior. Perhaps you'll notice a bleaker mood than normal or disturbed sleep. Either way, once the need becomes apparent, consult your list and follow through. And that is all that we have for you today. But if you have any self-care tips, please let us and other people who are looking know down in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. In the meantime, take care of yourself, your friends, and your neighbors. It's the adult thing to do.
All right. Hopefully the video played okay and the audio is okay. So he talked a lot about some of the things we talked about already, and then had some other new concepts and ideas that we didn't discuss yet, such as different types of self-care, which we talked about. May not always work for the same situation. So when you're feeling sad, the self-care that you do may not be the same self-care techniques that you would apply if you were overwhelmed at work, for example. And that really, I think the only thing I can say about that is it just depends on you and like what you need in certain different environments. And to journal, like he said, you know, when things happen and you're doing different self-care techniques for different situations, figure out what works best. And if you journal it, you could figure out patterns and see what best works for you. Another thing that I liked that he mentioned was to keep like a warm, fuzzy journal, I think he said, which is a great idea. Compiling all the cards and pictures and things people have written you and given you to go to when you need a little bit of a pick-me-up. I think it's so simple. And, you know, you might as well keep those things in one place anyway to save them and preserve them over time. So, yeah, I don't know, Nicole, if you have anything to add.
Well, I like that he talked about that. And when I was a teacher, I would keep pictures that children made for me and just sort of look through those, and they would just make me really happy because I would remember like when each one of them were created and what was happening at the time, and it would just make me really happy. Yeah.
Oh, is that what you want? Yeah, okay.
So I'd like to transition into talking a little bit about having a healthy mind. I think sometimes when people think of overall health, the mind is sometimes overlooked and not included in that. So it's important to remember that healthy minds and healthy bodies have a lot in common. Finding ways to care for your mind and body keeps you balanced and healthy. I'd like to ask something of each of you right now. I'd like to try a breathing technique with all of you. So if you're not sitting, please find a place to sit and sit up with a straight back. And I want all of you just to breathe normally for a few breaths. Now I want you to continue sitting up straight and begin once again, but this time while you're breathing, follow your breath as it goes into your nose, down your throat, and all the way to your belly. Now follow your breath breathing out through your mouth. I'd like to do this one more time. So let's take a deep breath. Follow your breath as it goes into your nose, down your throat, all the way to your belly. Now follow your breath breathing out through your mouth. How did that make you feel, the differences between the two? Did you notice that you were breathing differently the second time, or did you feel like you breathe like that naturally? How did you feel, Kim?
I felt like I was thinking about my body more as I was breathing. Like I was thinking about my throat as if it going down my throat.
Yeah.
And then into my stomach. And I typically never think about my breathing in general unless I'm doing a yoga class or something. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it was more mindful. And someone has just chimed in saying that the breathing was deeper and more mindful.
Yeah.
Which I agree.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's the proper way of breathing. And I think I don't breathe like that every day. But when I take time to, I can definitely feel a difference, you know? So just a little note, breathing through your nose creates a backflow of air and oxygen into your lungs. So breathing through the nose forces us to slow down a little bit and breathe properly. Breathing properly has a positive impact on our body and mind. And if you're interested in learning a little more about that, Kim and I do have some resources that we can send along when we send a follow-up email on that. Caregiver learning. So I want to talk a little bit about self-care and caregiver learning component. As all of you are aware, caregiver learning is a requirement in your KP&L groups, and this is a perfect topic to talk about with your caregivers. As we discussed earlier, self-care is important for everyone, so I really encourage all of you to share this information with your caregivers, talk to them about self-care, have a theme in your group about just general health, like our bodies and our minds. Ask them to talk about it if they would like to, talk about things that they do at home or with their families to practice self-care. There are a lot of ways you can do this, and it doesn't have to be that you're sitting at group time and asking everybody to share. It can just be having conversations, like side conversations, be a listening ear. I know that that can be so special when somebody maybe hasn't been practicing self-care and they, a caregiver approaches you and just wants to talk to you about something. And that's their way of practicing self-care, and just being listening and being open to that can really just make a big difference for somebody's day.
So we have another video. It's a self-care video that we like. It's a little bit more artistic in how it expresses self-care. And there are no words in it, just music and an animation. But we wanted to show it and just have you relax and listen to it and enjoy the music. And then have just a short discussion after about how you interpreted it in the context of self-care. Please.
I don't see it. Oh. Maybe I might have to pull it from the.
Okay.
Oh, there it goes.
Let's see. video. How did everyone feel about that? Does anyone want to share what they thought about it or how they interpreted it in terms of self-care? Any comments, questions, suggestions? Do you want to talk about what you liked about it, Nicole?
I love when he's flying up in the air and just like really happy and, you know, practice self-care and became yellow.
Yeah, the contrast was good of when the little animal was drained and darker versus when he sucked up all the yellow and was in the air and spinning and happy. Yeah. Well, there are no more comments on that. We will move to the next topic, which is a wrap up.
Yeah. As we get ready to wrap things up, we just want to give everybody an opportunity to talk to us about something you learned during this webinar, something you would like to try, or any changes that you think you'll make to your life or routine. So we'll give everybody a chance to chime in, either talking or through chat.
I can start to let people are thinking about their thoughts. I think the two things that I learned from this webinar and from like planning this was that there are so many different types of self-care. And one that surprised me was from that diagram I was talking about, the blue and green one that had like the 8 dimensions. And one of them was cognitive self-care, spending time to understand ourselves and take care of our minds in that aspect. And that was really interesting to me because I never heard about that type of self-care before. And then also looking at self-care like at a higher lens and thinking about how it is an activity that transcends all people all over the world, and that different cultures adapt it in different ways through like occasional activities or through daily activities. You know, like the afternoon siesta. You know, I never thought of that as like a self-care thing, but it is.
Yeah.
And it's deeply ingrained in a lot of different places, not in the US, but yeah.
Yeah. It looked like somebody typed in and said, incorporating loved ones into my self-care activities because I realized spending time, family and friends always help me feel refreshed. Yeah. Yeah, that is good. I think I've just been more, I don't know, I think I'm just thinking more about my own self-care too, just in this process, and making sure that I'm taking care of myself, but also thinking of all of you that are out there working so hard and juggling so many things, and just thinking of ways that we can support you all as well in self-care.
Some other folks have chimed in. They have learned that self-care is not a reward. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
It's a right that everyone has and that everyone should have. Also, someone else has said they've learned about the importance of self-care and sleep. Another one has mentioned sleep as well. I'm so glad that people are thinking about sleep more. That's definitely a huge thing to think about. I hope you all sleep well tonight and think about this webinar.
I think that's something I need to work on with my self-care is sleeping.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want my day to end.
Another one has mentioned that they learned, I'll just read it. The things that I learned in this webinar is taking care of myself and feeding my brain with energy, giving myself a spa moment or vacation. Yes, most definitely. Someone else has said, I'm going to try to breathe correctly most of the time.
Yeah. It's hard to train yourself to breathe that way. We all just, you know, a lot of us don't breathe that way, but it's so good for us. I think I'm going to try that too, Myra.
This is really great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for being so active and contributing so many thoughts and comments. It's so much more enriching when we have really good participation, and
Yeah.
this is really good participation. As we wrap up, there's just one thing I just want to note, because we're talking about what we learned today, what changes you might want to make. Again, I really encourage all of you to take the next step if you haven't and create something tangible to implement your self-care plan. So again, making a list of self-care ideas that you can post somewhere so you can see it every day. Making that fuzzy warm journal like that video talked about collecting your favorite pictures and cards and letters people have written you so that you can look at it occasionally. I really encourage you all to do those tangible things, because that can be like a first step in developing a deeper self-care plan if you're looking to do that after this webinar, which I hope you all are in it.
Yeah.
It seems like you are. Yeah.
I love the water on the plants. This is the KP&L team practicing self-care with plants. We took some time to celebrate after our hard work this legislative session for the expansion of facilitated playgroups in Washington. So we spent a day making terrariums together, and that was our form of self-care, being together, just talking and creating. And it was actually really good to just be around all those plants.
Yeah.
It just felt good in there. Yeah, very therapeutic.
Yeah, we just want to give you a live example of Kaleidoscope stuff. Also doing
Yeah.
Yeah, we just like this unicorn. So we just wanted to show you this and just to let you know that we encourage all of you, again, to take care of yourselves. And we hope that you do. And if you do take care of yourself, there can be more magic in your life.
Yeah.
And you'll be happier and healthier. And next time you feel stressed or overwhelmed about your group, your Kaleidoscope group or anything else, just think about this discussion we had and the ideas and concepts we talked about.
Yeah.
We also put together some like readings and videos for you to take a look at afterwards for continued learning. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, definitely dive in. And we also have some like children's yoga cards that I couldn't figure out really how to put nicely on this slide where you could access it and print it out. So we'll send that out in the email as well, so that you can think about breathing and yoga and self-care in your groups as well with the kiddos and caregivers that you see every week.
Yeah.
And are there any final last questions or comments that any of you have before we wrap up? This is your contact information. So feel free to give us a call or email if you have any questions. Give us updates on your self-care plans as you adapt them. We'd love to hear about it. We are always available to chat. We're getting some comments on this webinar and that it was helpful. Thank you so much. We're really glad. We just wanted this to be useful for all of you, really.
Yeah.
We're glad that you liked it. And this will be recorded and we'll send it out. So if you want to watch it again to go through the material or want to refer it to another facilitator or someone at work, definitely feel free to do so.
Yeah. And if there's any questions on resources that we did not attach, please just give us an email and we'll find those resources for you.
Well, if that is all, it's actually exactly 1 hour since we started. So it's great timing. We will see all of you next time for the next webinar. And we hope you all have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.